Hello again. First, I would like to thank Hani Abdul Razak for an interesting perspective on the waste sector in Saudi. Welcome to the panel discussion that focuses on the state of the recycling industry in Saudi Arabia. Waste and recycling experts will now offer their perspectives on the current state of play in the recycling sector in the nation. I would now like to introduce Richard Davidson, Middle East Director for Waste at Ricardo Energy and Environment, who will moderate this panel discussion. He's a chartered waste manager and has over 15 years experience in the waste management industry in Dubai. Richard has worked on various environmental projects, and he was involved as a waste technical specialist on some of the region's earlier iconic master plan cities and developments, and brings a wealth of knowledge and lessons learned from projects. He currently leads on the delivery of waste projects for regional clients, including waste strategies, procurement of waste collection services, and infrastructure development. Over to Richard.
Thank you, Swadia. Thanks for the introduction, and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this final session of the Synergy series. I hope you've enjoyed the last couple of days. Save the best till last. We're here to talk about the state of the recycling industry in Saudi Arabia. The very good news is that we have an extensive panel with us here today with years and years of experience between them, so very fortunate to have them all. The bad news is we are just currently waiting for Neil Reid to join us. He should be with us any moment, and also we only have an hour today to talk about this really expansive and interesting topic. So unfortunately we probably won't, because we have 5 on the panel, we probably won't get to ask every question to each individual panelist, but we'll do our best and we'll try to get through as many questions as we can. I'll ask you just to put any questions you have in the chat function, and I'll do my best to pose them to the panelists as well. I'll now just hand over to our panel just to take a couple of minutes to introduce themselves. I'll not to pick on anyone in particular, but let's start with Hani Tommy from Ronald Berger. Hani, if you could just introduce yourself, please.
Hello, everyone, and thank you, Richard. It's a great honor to be here with you today. I'm a senior partner at Roland Berger. I lead the sustainability practice in the MENA region, but also co-lead it globally. The kind of activities I'm involved in is from a consulting point of view. So I support typically governments or private companies participate in the waste sector specifically. And from my angle, I get to see the sectors outside in. So I'm hoping in the panel today to give you a bit of views on Saudi in terms of changes in governance and changes in strategy, and what does it mean specifically for the recycling sector, which I think is pretty exciting times. So very happy to be here, and happy to take on the questions later on.
Absolutely, thanks, Hani, and yeah, really looking forward to hearing your kind of experience from other countries across the region as well today. I'll now go to Hashim Al Jaber from Tadweer, please.
Thank you, Richard. This is Hisham Al Jaber, founder of Tadweer Saudi. Tadweer mainly is the first Saudi company that converts the organic waste into compost. We've started the project almost from scratch, and the project is funded by Wa'ad Aramco. Hopefully I can add something today about the organic waste recycling. Thank you again.
Thank you, Hisham. I think organics, it's probably not the area most talked about in the sector, but absolutely one of the priority areas given its kind of the sheer volume of it that's included in waste composition in Saudi. So yeah, really interested. Thank you for joining us today. I'll go to Hani from ESG. Next, please. Thanks,
yeah, thank you, Richard. So good afternoon, everyone. This is Hani Abdul Razak from ASG, Principal Sustainability Consultant, supporting in the management of the Sustainability Division. So one of the key things I just want to share is that I led the development of the Mustadam rating system, the sustainability rating system that has been established by a sustainable building program under the Ministry of Housing, looking at more sustainable practices and certification of Saudi Arabia, like construction industry. I'm really happy, and like it's an honor to be part of this panel discussion next to all the other panelists, and we can see really like the strong and solid experience each one here is bringing, and we hope that we can all are adding value to the conversation here. Thank you.
Thanks, Hani. I can see you'll probably have some interesting questions around. I'm appreciating you're very much involved in the development of new projects and probably the giga cities, and we all know that there's a lot of aspiration there around sustainability, and that needs to be supported by kind of national infrastructure as well. So yeah, thank you, and nice to have you as well. And we'll go to engineer Sami Safran from MEPCO now, please. Hi, engineer Sami.
Yeah, good afternoon, gentlemen. I am Sami from Middle East Paper Company, MEPCO. We are considered to be one of the largest recycling company in the MENA region. We recycle 500,000 tons of paper. We have also our own affiliates company, WASCO, which is actually a waste management company looking after different activities. One of them is paper collecting, sorting, and recycling. Also, we have an investment in different material recovery facilities across the kingdom. We've been in the industry almost for 2 decades, and we have been watching the evolution of development of waste management and understanding, and the evolution of the Saudi vision in the transformation, looking for the diversion from the landfills by 2035 for almost 99% to be diverted. So I'm interested really to join you here and listen from you and hear from you. It will be a very interesting topics, inshallah.
No, absolute pleasure to have you with us today, engineer Sami, and it's good to have you and Hisham on the call today. And it's not just consultants talking; it's actually we have some real people with experience in the industry, which is always good. Unfortunately, Neil Reid from Hollywood Electronics Recycling and Treatment Company is not with us yet, but I'm sure he'll be with us soon. And we'll wait for Neil to join, but you know, of course, because he's late, he's going to get all the hard questions today. It's just the way it is. And just a quick bit of context then, really, it's just in terms of the recycling, the global recycling industry. I just quickly Googled to get some up-to-date numbers, but currently it's worth over $57 billion globally, and that's from the end of 2021, and it's expected to grow to about 88 billion by 2030. So we're all very fortunate to be in a very in a growing industry. Of course, the global recycling sector has faced a kind of unprecedented period of change. We've had a lot of different kind of factors, such as the COVID pandemic, the global renewed focus on sustainability and environment. Some countries have been restricting the import of certain materials that have had impact on the industry, and of course other geopolitical events also have that impact. But in terms of in Saudi, it's also kind of, as you engineer Sami has kind of referenced, has gone through a massive period of change as well. So we've seen that you've referenced the Vision 2030, engineer Sami, and that's absolutely driving the industry here. We've seen the establishment of the National Waste Centre, M1, who have a mandate to kind of reorganize and enhance the industry. We're aware that they're obviously developing a new national waste management strategy. They've introduced new solid waste law, and we'll be supporting that with implementation regulations. And I could go on. There's a lot to do, including the new inspection licensing system. And I guess in context, that the kind of intention is to obviously embed circular economy into the sector and to stimulate the recycling market. I've seen that the current kind of recycling rate in Saudi is roughly about 14%, some say 10% or so, but the aspiration or ambition is to move to a level of I think 42% is the latest target I've heard, which, you know, provides some context of the importance of our sector as to achieving those ambitions. I'll start now with some questions. I'll go to our industry experts first, and just really start with you, engineer Sami. If you could give us your views on the current recycling landscape in Saudi, and what are really the key topics that are shaping the industry at the moment?
Look, guys, I said I'm learning here, so I should be the last to be asked. Well, it's been really interesting 2 decades, definitely. I remember when we started long ago in the paper recycling, really we have been forced to invest into the waste management because at that time it was totally non-regulated market, okay? And the majority of the recovered materials went for the export. And accordingly, we have invested and we tried to develop the market through the 2 decades. Now, going forward in quick, what I have seen in the last 5 years, a mass transformations since the government have announced their ambitions about the diversion from the landfills and enhancing recycling. At least my outdated number, I was considering the recovery rate in Saudi Arabia is less than 10%. Now it is within 5 years, 40% higher, going to 14%. Definitely, this is not the target. The target is to reach up to 80. However, I could summarize in quickly the major changes I have seen it that the public awareness has been improved greatly. I have seen a lot of CSR initiatives. One of them is what my colleague Hisham speaking about Hulul with the support of Aramco to recover the waste. I have seen that the amount of generated waste from my sector, which is the paper, has been drastically increased in the last 4 years. A lot of players has come. I have seen an increase in investment in material recovery facilities in different areas. Definitely, some of them are facing challenges due to lack of regulations, a single stream flow, but the other of them are doing okay. Now, that really gives us an indications that I think that every year we are going to see a major evolution in the development of the sector, because I think Mawan is very aggressive since they launched the regulations. They start to build a database about the waste, which is something we are really missing. I have seen the municipalities are recording now not only the segregation of waste that is coming to the landfill, but also one of their KPIs are the recovery of the materials. So yeah, things are really, I could say, hitting toward the right directions. Some of the laws has to be enforced right and left, which I think will serve the sector. Look, the topic's so long, but probably I'll let my colleagues to add up on my discussion here.
No, thank you, Engineer Sammy. Yeah, I don't think you're learning. You're going to teach us a thing or two today, I'm sure of it. Hesham, just same question to you, really, just in terms of organics. Where are we today in terms of compost and recycling of food waste, green waste?
Well, there is a report published by the Ministry of Environment stated that we have about 13 million tons of food are wasted every year. Okay. We're still honestly in the early stage in terms of composting. We might, I think, have very good accomplishment in other types of recycling, like recycling, plastics, e-waste. But in terms of composting, honestly, we are in the right let's say path, and everything is changing as mentioned by Engineer Sami. But for example, I'm dealing here in Dammam. I'm dealing with the municipality of Eastern Province. They told me directly we have 6,000 tons going to landfill every day. The good news is they started just maybe 2 months ago to transfer the loss from the waste from the food waste to our plant instead of sending it to the landfill. We have 2 types of waste in the food sector: loss and waste. The loss, that one that is during the whole supply chain, like packaging, farming, transportation. And the waste is during the consuming stage. According to the Saudi Governing Organization, they said for each person per capita per year, we have 105 kilogram per capita, which is something of the highest worldwide, honestly. But let me give you just let's say a funny story. In 2016, we were having a visit to Japan. We visited a paper recycling company that converted the paper into tissues. The funny thing that they told us, there is a machine, They just put the file inside the machine and they take the paper directly to the production line. They take they sunk the ink from the paper and they sell the ink to the painting companies. And at the same time, they are removing the plastic and they use it as a fuel to run the plant itself. Of course, we want to reach that level of recycling. I think we are again doing well, but there are a lot of efforts needed to be done during the coming period.
Absolutely. No, thank you for that. And Hani from AESG, you mentioned your kind of support on the new green building standards regulations. Do you see that kind of having an impact?
Yeah, of course. And yeah, I mean, generally, from my point of view, and also like when we developed the new rating system, the sustainability rating system, I mean, to make it also work, I mean, there were discussions about mandating specific targets for waste recycling as a minimum requirement. But as Engineer Hisham said, and Engineer Sam here, is that things are still like evolving. I mean, Saudi Arabia really like kind of secured some massive like aspects of progress on different sides. But I mean, in order for this to really kind of work on an overall national scale, I mean, we need more infrastructure and we need more kind of collaboration and awareness. While these are progressing, but I mean, we need more in order for really like for us to mandate specific like minimum waste recycling. Now, just to give you an idea, and that's why I mentioned this, because when we launched the beta version of that, or the first version, which is currently like live and operational, this waste management recycling targets are optional. Now, there are certain projects are targeting it. And if you kind of connect to the key strategical projects in Saudi Arabia, like whether it's mega projects or giga projects, they are having seriously ambitious targets and they are doing everything possible to eliminate waste, like from considering designing for flexibility or modular systems, or really kind of installing temporary recycling facilities on site in order for them to limit their waste. So this is very positive. Like the targets are very serious and everyone wants to work towards it. So the more infrastructure we have soon, the easier we can get the targets. So definitely this is something very positive, and we can see like the overall landscape is significantly changing. And if you track on the news, like I guess this year by itself, I think different entities announced like big recycling facilities, whether it's waste to energy or other aspects. So we see this like happening in a more rapid way recently.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'll go to Hani and Ronald from Ronald Berger now and just change tack a little. And just Hani, just interested in your views on the changes happening in KSA today. And do you see this being in favor of the recyclers, our colleagues here in the call?
Well, definitely. Look, recycling is not rocket science. So the technology is there, right? So
don't give the secret away, Hani. Build a career on it.
No, really. I think, you know, the technologies that are there, right? So yeah. How to recycle a paper, or how to recycle the organics or electronics, etc. is there. But the challenge is how to make sure you get the feedstock there in the right quality, right? So it's a matter of logistics and controlling your value chain. And without the regulation, without the infrastructure, as mentioned by my colleague here, Hani, right? Without having the right players and the right access, and of course, without having the right recycler, you will not get there, right? So the beautiful part in Saudi, and why you see the direction is going towards a positive trend from all my colleagues here, is the fact that the first fundamental of the market is being addressed, which is the governance. Let's create a policymaker. Let's create a regulator. Let's create the operators. Let's create all those players, right? And the moment you have that governance set, you know, all right, who's setting the policies, how the regulations are set, how do I control my scavengers, when do I want my exports to take place, when do I want to import actually some material, and how the waste flow should go. And this is actually the master planning that is taking place, like you mentioned from Mawan, right? This is where the mega clusters are taking place, like players from SIRC. And this is where all the stakeholders are now playing in favor of the local market. Because the worst thing that was happening in the past is not just the fact that it's going to the landfill, it's also equally painful that there is so much leakage of value where the kingdom could benefit from those resources locally. You see? And here, once you organize the logistics and organize the waste flow, which is taking place today, this is where a lot will go on the shoulders again of the recyclers. And indeed, this is where rocket science will come in place, because you want to maximize how much products you can actually treat locally and how much benefit you could go through that. Do you go with mechanical recycling? Do you advance to chemical recycling? Do you do different kind of pyrolysis altogether? So all those activities will then have to be placed on the table, and the financial viability is something that you can discuss. You see, and that's why I have strong hope and belief in the market today, because I see regulations getting in place. I see investments in infrastructure happening. I see also discussions about gate fees, which is amazing because finally you are treating the waste as you should, right? Yeah. And that's my view.
No, thank you for that, Hani. And Engineer Sami, just to Hani's point there, just about the leakage from Saudi Arabia, is that something you've kind of seen and struggled with at MEPCO in terms of material being lost to other markets, or is it something you embrace and export some of your materials to other markets?
Let's talk about our segment out of a collected capacities of 1 million ton of waste paper. We used to monitor 25 to 30% is being leaked outside, while the local companies are in need of. Accordingly, local companies are replacing the volume by importing outside. Early last year, the National Waste Center had stepped in and he started to regulate the market by controlling it through the regular process of issuing license for export. Now that license of an export, we have seen that the market becomes more rational, because if you see the indices of, for example, the price of waste paper in Saudi Arabia comparing with the United States or Europe, we usually used to be double than the prices. Like while the prices in the United States at $100, you will see at our local market at $200. Thankfully, since the regulations came in force, we have seen some rationalization. Now the local prices are close to the international prices, which is very reasonable. Still, there is an export activities, which we understand, because the market will not accommodate everything that being collected right now.
Okay, and why has that licensing kind of supported the kind of change in prices and brought into line with the likes of the US?
It's an interesting question. You speak about my area. Look, globally, while there is an excess generation of a waste paper in countries like United Kingdom or United States being the consumer countries, there is a mass shortages happening in Asia, specifically in China. And China, we know that they have actually launched the green fence strategy, but it's just actually changing positions that the demand have moved from China to South Asia. So South Asia, where they are having a huge demand, the material should be sailed from all the way far west to far east. So if you see the price index of, let's say, our area, which is waste paper, you will see the prices in South Asia are 3 times the prices in China. Being our region are in the middle region, where the logistic cost is less than half of the cost from sailing from the western area, that actually delta have been reflected on the prices. And this is why, to go back to my example, while the prices in the United States is $100, in Saudi Arabia $200, in South Asia $300. So definitely the traders in the waste paper, their first option is to move it to that one, which really puts the pressure on our prices and appreciate it. Now, when the regulation of MOAN, it is the very classical regulations. I mean, every part of your waste management strategy is to control the waste stream going out and going in from the country, from and to the country itself. So what they have actually practiced is the normal practice. But the result actually is enabling the industries now to grow in a healthy manner, to have a plan for increasing their capacities, to make sure to increase recycling within the country itself.
Thank you for that. And Hesham, do you kind of see that kind of management control of the export import of waste recyclable materials as being important and kind of supporting local industry. Do you have a view on that?
Well, in our area, we don't have a lot of importing, let's say, the waste, because we have plenty of organic waste here in Saudi Arabia, and it's more than enough. What we need is to, as Engineer Sami mentioned, we need to regulate more in the organic waste area. We need more regulations. For example, I will tell you something. Once we started our project, we have approached one of the main and famous restaurant chains. They were throwing the waste outside as a typical restaurant. We asked them just give us the waste. He asked me, how much will you pay? Okay. Of course, I told him zero. I will pay zero. So I left. After maybe 2 months, he received a letter from the municipality asking him to cooperate with recycling companies. So he called me and said, okay, Hisham, I want to cooperate, but please don't charge us. I think this is what we need. In terms of importing and exporting, I think it's something related more to other types of business.
Thank you, Hisham. And I think that kind of brings me to a question on kind of quality and specification of materials. And I guess that's obviously very important for products from organic sources. So to I guess restrict the presence of pathogens in final products, that type of thing. And Hani, from AESG, kind of question to you: do you kind of see, is there a kind of standard or standards for recyclable materials in Saudi that you're aware of? Is there a standardization of grades of material, levels of purity that are required, or maximum contamination?
So I mean, generally, I mean, from our view, these are not yet like specifically mandated in a let's say stringent way from different like kind of regulations or building codes. Now there is more move to kind of being more sustainable, optimized. However, most of the kind of guidelines and codes that are promoting this are still like into like kind of trial mandate or voluntary basis, let's say. I mean, you can think about like the Saudi Green Building Code or Mustadam itself, which is based on the Saudi Green Building Code. I mean, there are some really inspiring requirements that will promote like recyclable content. So all of this will really like kind of help in minimizing waste generation. Yet, let's say, I mean, there are some difficulties now. Thankfully, I mean, Saudi is one of the countries that is really kind of reliant on many local manufacturing, and this is very good. So if you think about it, I mean, you can connect waste to carbon footprint. And I mean, we talked about import and export. So all of this is like a chain of different activities that will help us for better circular economy. All right. So if we can kind of integrate more recycled content and recycling or recyclable compositions in the material manufactured locally, I mean, you are achieving two targets with one activity. First of all, you are reducing your carbon footprint by importing less. And secondly, you will be reusing your waste that is generated to add it to new products. So, I mean, just to summarize, I mean, there are some industries and initiatives by certain manufacturers and some codes that are promoting this, but it's at an early stage.
Now, thanks for that, Hani. And I see we've just started to get our first questions come through. I'll just pick one. We have one from Arut Itaf, just asking, I'll put this one to you, Hani, Tommy. What are the current categorizations available in waste management? Without specific collection mechanisms for e-waste, how is that particular waste stream managed or sent to specific e-waste recyclers? So I guess the gist of the question is that we know there's a lot of waste electrical equipment in the market, but I guess visibly we don't see kind of separate collection systems for that as it stands. So where does it go? How is it collected?
Yeah. So it's a nice question, specifically that the e-waste globally is becoming the trend, right? And there is a lot of, you know, when they say waste is gold, probably they only are talking about that specific waste, because that's the one that could be actually having both. When it comes to e-waste, you have to segregate the kinds of e-waste that are coming out. So you have those that are from the household, and unfortunately those today either are retained and stored in your house, or they end up somewhere in a bin, and eventually scavengers will not for sure let it go, right? So you hardly see a laptop thrown inside the bin and it just goes unnoticed to the landfill. So majority of it is actually collected by scavengers and taken away. Now, the more painful element is for the big enterprises. And here we talk about electricity, we talk oil and gas, telecom. They have actually the massive amount of e-waste. And there, so far, it has been sent via auctions based on sometimes maintenance contract, based on different kinds of contract. But only recently you see an increase in contracts specifically for recycling. So it is not yet, or it has not been in the past, the KPI of those companies to say, my responsibility is to make sure those products go all the way to recycling. It has always been about, my responsibility is to dispose of them, not in the landfill, but to dispose of them to a player who wants to take it, right? With the change of regulations, this is where the role will become different, because that's where you will start having manifests, and the manifest will tell you who are you actually selling it to. Is that a player that is certified, and would that player be able to recycle it, right? And once they recycle it, this is where you can create a whole market from it. And that links back to what Engineer Sami said in the past. It will actually impact mostly the pricing of that waste, right? Because now you go and you pay for it a certain amount, and then this amount is sometimes astronomical and decoupled from reality, simply because of supply and demand. But the moment you open up, you regulate it, you start classifying it, you start collecting it the right way, and therefore you start associating the right price to it, and you make it competitive. You see? So the question is true, because there is no real collection points for it. Now it's going from middleman to middleman to middleman to eventually, hopefully, either recycling or exporting. So you can imagine loss of value, loss of value, loss of value, and hoping to create something out of it at the end.
Absolutely, and I guess that's a nice segue into the next question. Just on, you know, we hear a lot that there is kind of a informal scavenging sector in Saudi, and I guess just I'll put it out there to who feels they have a kind of an opinion on this. Is scavenging a big issue at the moment in Saudi? Like, is it an issue to be solved, or you know, in other parts of the world we see that the informal sector is embraced and brought into the formal sector as part of an enhancement of a waste management system? Does anyone have a view on that? Maybe.
Yeah, well, it's a very sensitive questions, but I'll take the lead. No one wants to answer this question.
Thank you for that, Engineer Tony.
The waste collection currently is happening through two major streams. Definitely, one of them is the illegal, and the illegal, whether it's an individual scavengers or institutional scavengers. And the second one is the legal way, which happens through actually a commercial contracts that generate the generation from the source, like, for example, supermarket waste, factory waste, contract through municipalities. Now, definitely there is a drastic change has happened in the last, I call it the 2 decades. I mean, when we started in early 2000, the illegal scavengers was representing almost close to 70% of our supplies to the demand. Let's say, for example, for the paper sector, we managed to bring them down extensively, very high. Today, MEPCO is almost working with 100%, but we are not the only one in the market. We have seen a lot of individuals have been moved away from the market, institutions came. However, the practice is still there. Now, I know part of MOAN regulation is launched that the illegal scavenging is considered to be a crime, because the ownership of the waste generated material belongs to the government, and MOAN have the authority to deal with it. So now the law is there. Now the next step is enforcing the law to make it happening.
Absolutely.
And during this transformation stage, we just want to make sure that to increase the amount of recycling.
If you may allow me, and thank you very much, Engineer Sami. If you allow me, Richard, just to add one
Yes,
thought,
please, Hani.
supporting Engineer Sami. I mean, looking back, I mean, I was just recalling some kind of events happened before dealing with some construction projects in Saudi Arabia, and I remember also like there was some kind of direct and indirect kind of issues with scavenging of waste. Like I remember like certain projects that were aiming to divert certain types of construction waste like concrete or specifically steel and other items that can really be collected and sold separately. I mean, you see that times it was really challenging to find like proper and formalized recycling facilities, because you see that all of these individuals are kind of immediately acting to kind of approach the contractors in a very kind of easy approach just to take that waste and make it disappear from the site. So this really kind of put an extra issue, an extra challenge on top of the how we want to manage the waste. And definitely like the kind of decision by Muan to properly regulate this and kind of penalize such activities will really eliminate such acts.
Thank you for that. Really, really interesting. And
Richard, can I add a point?
yes, please.
I think we have a special case in Saudi Arabia where we have plenty of especially organic waste, and at the same time it is not accessible. But I'll give you just one example. In France, for example, they have they banned any supermarket to throw away any food waste. They have either to be given to charity, or to be given again as a livestock, or to be recycled. Otherwise, they will be fined.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. And I think just the other day, kind of hearing about a regional example in the UAE where they have the UAE Food Bank, where it was supported by the government, which is now kind of encouraging kind of commercial entities to kind of commit any kind of food at the end of the day to that, and it's kind of deregulating or kind of I guess facilitating the process to allow companies to do that, which is quite interesting to hear, and I guess a good example for the rest of the region on what can be achieved as well. And Hesham, staying with you, because what I guess I'm not quite stuck on the scavenging question, but I think it's a global challenge at the moment around kind of getting labor and staff into our industry, because it's, you know, it mightn't be the most attractive industry, but it's certainly part of a lot of the mega trends we're seeing around sustainability, net zero, and it's a growing industry. And I think probably all of us in this call have the same challenges around finding kind of experienced or qualified staff. And I'm just wondering, how do you see us as an industry trying to attract kind of young Saudis, kind of support Saudiization into our industries? You think it's going to be an industry that's going to be attractive?
Not that much. It's really challenging, because we are still, especially in the composting, for example, I can barely find a Saudi expert in the field. Well, we have signed an agreement with the King Faisal University, which is in Al-Ahsa. Al-Ahsa is the biggest oasis worldwide. They have very good practices. One of the let's say researchers that they made, that they converted the palm wastes into RDF wood and biochar, ethanol. They have a lot of products. We are trying now to study the feasibility of those types of products in order to commercialize the process. But going back to the let's say expert people, we're still trying to find the Saudi youngs, and honestly, we found a lot of people they want to learn, which is something good, especially in this sector.
Absolutely, and I think
Maybe
it is.
Richard,
Yes.
If I may just add one view on that, yeah.
Yeah.
If you segment your question a little bit, you realize that indeed you might not find a lot of enthusiasm for people to pick up the waste or for people to work on the line or do those elements. However, the more the sector automates or the more it innovates, you will find a lot of interest. For example, if you look at the collection today, you have the backloading, a very simple change to side loading where you actually need more of an engineer to operate a truck than just manual labor. You might find a different view to the whole activity, right? If you look into the different lines and you start segregating your waste, and now you have lines that are quite automated and you're looking for process engineers, you're looking for different kind of engineers, you will see also quite a different reaction from the market and from the labor force to the sector. Because what I'm seeing progressively, especially from the leadership in the sector, which are quite representative of Saudis, right? What you see is that there is a very, very high interest in sustainability in general, in circular economy, and people are hungry to participate and to contribute. The question is, how can the sector change in a way that allows for this talent to go in, and what can we do to actually make sure that those jobs that are unattractive for Saudis actually no longer exist? And that's where, to your answer, to your question initially, do you want local scavenging or not? Usually the countries that accept scavenging are the countries that have local population working in scavenging, and by doing so, they are giving them jobs, right? In Saudi, given the lack of attractiveness, you might want to stay away from scavenging.
Yeah, no, and I think probably none of us on this call probably set out for a career in waste management when we finish school, but you know, you end up here. But I think it's an important point, and one that as a sector we shouldn't lose sight of, that you know there's potential for a massive skills gap there. We can see the opportunity and the M1's mandate and the scale of ambition that you know we wouldn't want that to be impacted by not having the right people available at the time. Right, so we have 14 minutes left, and I'll just have a quick look at the chat screen to see if you have any questions. So we have one from Musa Kazim that just wants to ask a question on, can you please share any updates related to government initiatives to promote recycling, reduce waste going to landfills? Anyone have any internal intelligence state be interested in sharing?
Well, by almost like 7 years ago, Saudi Arabia have announced, like what we mentioned, their ambition about diversion from the landfill by 2035, 99%, 80% of them to be recycled, 19% for the waste to energy. And the part of that initiative to subsidize it is that they have launched MOAN, which is the now National Center for Waste Management, and that belongs to the Ministry of Environment. They have also launched actually the environmental monitoring agencies, okay, to avoid actually we call it any harmful acts against the environment. And finally, also the government has launched the CERC, which is actually an investment company to enable the industry of waste management. During the last 5 years, I have seen a lot of projects has been announced in terms of recycling. The last of them, for example, was last week, the RDF operating plant in Riyadh.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we have seen also, I think, most of the new projects, whether NEOM or Red Sea, it is coming with the complete waste management circuit. So yeah, aggressively, there is actually a major activities on the ground. I believe every year we are going to see a major progress in that part.
Thank you for that, Engineer Sami. And I guess the next question leading on from that is what's happening now, but what do the panel think the government should be doing to support the industry? Hani from ASG, do you want to take that one first?
Sure, thank you. So, I mean, honestly, it's a nice coincidence because I kind of focused on that specific point in my speaking session just before this panel discussion. So I personally feel, and this is not just like as an opinion, but this is also looking at other GCC countries and worldwide, because I also like worked for some time with IKEA as a global company. I mean, you can all conclude, and I guess everyone agrees that in order to influence this sector, government mandate is a key. And government mandate can come in different shapes, whether it's kind of fines, penalties, or even mandate of certain procedure in how we kind of manage waste, like as simple as rejecting waste skips that are having recyclables will influence every single like waste generator or even construction site to work properly. Or for example, one of the nice things you can see it also happening in Europe or US is like pay as you throw. So depending on how much you are generating waste, you can pay certain amount of fees in terms of like how often we need to come and collect your waste. And it needs to be kind of connected with the overall like kind of consideration of the urban positioning of the city, or like environmental considerations. And yeah, I mean generally, I mean, just to summarize, I mean, government mandate is definitely a main driver for us to achieve these goals. We don't, I mean, but I don't want to say that without government mandate we'll not be able to achieve it, because as simple as what engineer Sami said, certain initiatives are already being announced without any government mandate. Like you can see, these giga projects are already targeting circular economy, net zero, zero waste to landfill, and some are also like kind of considering waste to energy. CERC and MOAN are already doing some initiatives. It doesn't mean that without the government mandate we are not moving forward. We are, but we can really get every single person in the society to act if we have certain mandates. And it can vary. Like I can at least like as simple as putting an extra custom fees on the plastic bags so that supermarkets and retail, for example, moves more towards kind of recyclable shopping bags. It can help. I mean, it will come with a cost. It will come with big resistance, but I mean, it's a long journey for us to achieve these targets, and we need to act from now.
Yeah, no, that's so really interesting. I think you kind of part of your answer was kind of focusing on the need for that kind of segregation at the point of generation to ensure that the feedstock is presented in a certain way. And I guess Hani, Tommy, question to you is that, you know, feedstock is usually the bottleneck in utilization, and how do you see the new kind of governance of the sector helping to support this challenge we see?
Yeah, I think to discuss feedstock, you have to go to the origin, and you have to start thinking first how to reduce overall the waste, because that is always the first criteria, right? But then, assuming the waste is generated, how are you preparing it for pre-collection and then for collection, right? So the focus should not be at now I have waste, what do I do with it? It's what to do before having that waste and how to segregate it. A bare minimum, and to the point of Hisham here, you know, a bare minimum, let's separate the food from non-food, right? Because then at least you can preserve the paper for engineer Sami, and you can preserve the plastics for recyclers. You can preserve everything for everyone, right? The tools can take care of dry waste much better than mixed waste. So you start from doing that. And I believe the regulation currently is looking into that pre-collection and the sorting at the source. And unlike many people would think, it's not impossible to do, right? There has been many tests and attempts in Riyadh that were quite successful, but people quickly lose interest if they don't see the end result. So the moment you want to launch all those initiatives of pre-collection and segregation of the waste, you'd better make sure to have the different trucks collecting it, the recycling taking place, and the results are being shown, as opposed to having it pre-collected or sorted at the source, and then you mix them together and take them in one truck, because then that creates frustration. You see?
Yeah.
So that's, I would say, the biggest initiative, because that will simplify the value chain going forward. But also what is very important is the whole concept of the manifest, tracking the waste. If you know where it is, you know how to deal with it. If you don't know where it is and how much it is, then you will lose track of it, and eventually it starts leaking, it starts ending up in open dumps, and it goes in the wrong direction.
Sorry, Richard, can I add one small note on this? Because I really kind of got interested into the initiative and the evidence of the waste, because I have a personal experience in this. I used to work in managing one of the biggest IKEA distribution centers, like here in Dubai, and we had around 200 blue-collar workers managing the overall distribution and material handling. Just to cut the story short, because I know we are running behind time, we kind of mandated a solution to kind of collect food waste during lunch break and other breaks that everyone is having, to use a kind of an appliance that will take food waste and convert it to water through some kind of natural bacteria digestion. This really helped in raising the awareness, and it was really interesting that at certain moments some workers were approaching me asking, can I put this bone or fish bone into that? So like, you raise the awareness, you get people to act. As long as they see the evidence that this is not going to a trash bag, then definitely everyone will be on board. So like, the evidence is really a key here also. Thank you, Hani, for sharing that.
No, absolutely, and I did warn everyone at the start of this session that an hour was not going to be enough. We've got another 5 minutes, and I always like to finish, because I don't know if all the questions I need to be asking, and I know you guys have a lot to say, and I just put the question to each person on the panel. What is a key thing that you think we're not talking about that we should be talking about here in this session today? Is there any particular subject that should be on kind of front and center of our minds at the moment? And I won't put anyone on the spot to start, but if anyone wants to go first, and then we'll just kind of use the last few minutes just to go through the panel, please.
Yes, please. I think any successful, let's say, recycling projects need like a rectangle model: regulations, investment, and awareness. I think this is what I can say about that.
Thank you, Hesham. Brilliant. Who's next? Hani, you look like you're ready to go there.
Yeah, I'm always ready to answer. All right, I think, look, two points from my end. I think the financing of the waste is a big topic, kind of the elephant in the room that usually is taken for granted. And the flow of waste, flow of funds, be it through extended producer responsibility, be it through tariffs on citizens. So basically, the concept mentioned by Hani of pay as you throw is actually, for me, the more important is pay when you pollute, right? So the polluter pays concept should definitely be applied. And the second thing, which I hope that next panel we will be talking about, is the next step, right? So now we're still addressing all the way the fundamentals. Hopefully next discussions about recycling would be, what are the new technologies? How is the market going in that direction? And how can we create the maximum value for Saudi?
Absolutely. And I think, this event will happen every 12 months. So I think there's going to be a lot more to talk about in 12 months time, that's for sure. Engineer Sami, anything you think we should be talking about, or we can put on the agenda for 12 months time?
No, I think it was great coverage. And yes, I echo what Hani was mentioning. I think, like what I said, every year we are going to see a major evolution development is going on. And I think the next step will be speaking about more details of the technology and the optimization issues itself. Currently, definitely we speak about the fundamentals, but the great news that we are in Saudi Arabia are in the right direction for implementing the waste management strategy properly. I think it was, since it's been announced, it took some lag time, because really keep in mind that if you speak 3 or 4 years ago, nothing will be talking, will understand the wording of waste recycling. Now it's becoming a hot topic. It's becoming, and ESG is a part of a concern. I believe maybe you have heard recently about the green initiatives of Saudi Arabia. And part of that green initiatives is the waste management. Part of it is the converting the organic waste to composite, to use it to meet the target of the 10 billion plantations of trees. So it's a whole, really a whole holistic approach for the waste management. And it's really very interesting to be with you guys here and listen more about the topics.
Absolutely, and yeah, that's we could have probably done a whole session on composting, because I do agree with you. It has to be a fundamental part of the solution. We'll go to Hani from AESG for the last word of the session.
Yeah. Sure. I mean, two things I just want to quickly share. One is that I think we really need more data. We need more granular data about waste, source of generation, types of waste, frequency, and everything, so that we can influence our roadmap for zero waste. The second thing, the community needs more confidence in our infrastructure. We know that we have big projects, we have big ambitions. Now they need to see results. Because I mean, I had different conversations with different kind of people from construction industry or other industries, that they say we want to kind of separate waste. We know that these initiatives are there, but we kind of realize that it gets collected and sent all to landfill. We need to kind of rebuild or build more confidence in the society that it's actually happening. Let's all collaborate together, and that's it.
No, absolutely, and again, such a wide area of topics, so much to cover. I think from my side, the one area we didn't touch on, and it's probably for 12 months, is just the kind of interface with the national government's commitment to net zero. Decarbonisation. How does the waste and recycling sector support those aspirations? What does it mean for recycling? And where does what else can we do as a sector to support the circular economy? Because in reality, recycling is probably at the bottom end of a circular economy, and so there's a lot more to talk about and a lot more to do. But really interesting session today, and I think that, as I say, save the best to last. And thank you to all the panelists for their time today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be part of this.
Thank you.
Yeah, hello everyone. I would like to thank all the panelists for a very interesting conversation. Thank you so much, Richard, for moderating this session. Well, this is the last panel, and I believe we have got some valuable insights into the Saudi waste and recycling market today. I'd like to thank all those who attended various sessions through the day. Hope you all enjoyed the conference. We would also like to thank all our sponsors and partners, including the title sponsor, Wasco, diamond sponsor, Riza Hygiene, gold sponsors, Shibib and Facilio, segment sponsor, Initial Saudi Group, and silver sponsor, Torque. With this, the Synergy Series KSA comes to an end, but the networking facility will be available through this week. So do take advantage of this opportunity to meet and network with industry colleagues. Also, the Synergy Series Bahrain and Oman will take place from 25 to 27 July. Stay tuned, as we'll soon be sharing more information on this in our newsletters and social media platforms. Thank you all. Thank you again for joining us here today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.